As it was foretold, upon reaching 20k subscribers, I would do another Salamanders Thematic List Build. The time has come. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you to everyone who made it possible for this channel of mine to grow to this size. But what should be the next landmark for a subsequent Salamanders Thematic List Build video? 40k seems like a fitting number. This one is for the champions of humanity, the Sons of Vulkan. It's a thematic list build for the Salamanders. The Salamanders Detachment is the aptly named Firestorm Assault Force, and it brings with it quite the shift. The 8th edition Salamanders chapter tactic provided a single hit and wound reroll each time a unit was activated to attack, and leading into 9th, their chapter tactics hit reroll was replaced with a perk which mitigated incoming enemy AP. Now in 10th edition, the Salamanders Detachment rule gives all ranged weapons in your army the assault ability, and ranged weapons within 12 inches of their targets increase their strength by 1. Overall, I'd say it's a win. Sure, we've lost the ability to bolster melee efficiency, and there is no representation of the Salamander's resiliency, but what we've gained is characterization to encourage the close-range firefight playstyle. Having assault army-wide means Salamanders can be more mobile than their contemporaries while maintaining their ability to fire ranged weapons. And it makes all of your units capable of advancing and performing action-oriented secondary missions, since units need to be able to shoot in order to perform actions. But most importantly, when compared to the previous chapter tactics, the close-range eradication rule actually encourages a different style of play. It changes the lens which you look at units through, which to me is far more mechanically interesting than a chapter tactic which just makes you more efficient. And I'll admit, I am guilty of bemoaning the rigid and undynamic feel the Salamanders had throughout 8th and 9th, but the Firestorm Assault Force's detachment rule, combined with a few stratagems which offer some pretty unique exceptions which relate to transports, gives them a toolkit which makes them far more swift and dynamic, as visualized here by these attribute charts. And so for me, the Firestorm Assault Force's detachment's offerings are a welcomed change. When it comes to the thematic objectives of the list, they are fire trucks. Any true Salamanders player loves their fire trucks, and the new detachment plays into that affinity, so we're taking transports loaded with some fiery units. Now, let's head over to the list breakdown. The list is largely organized around the aforementioned fire trucks, and so I think it's best to go through them as they pair. Our first truck is a repulsor taken in the Last Talon Twin Last Cannon configuration. It's a tougher vehicle at toughness 12, and it brings some anti-armor support with its last weapons and Hunter Slayer missile. And the Repulsor Defensive Array offers a decent anti-infantry profile, which is a nice quality of life design choice compared to the abomination of different small arms weapons you used to have to parse through. The Repulsor's ability is Emergency Combat Embarkation, which allows a unit declared as the target of an enemy charge to embark within the Repulsor so long as they are within the specified range, and are not already in engagement range. It's a nifty exception. Riding in that Repulsor is a squad of 6 Blade Guard veterans. That's 6 models with 3 wounds behind a toughness of 4 and a 3-up 4-up. It's 6 models which have 4 attacks each, hitting on 3s at strength 5, AP 2, dealing 2 damage. And their ability allows them to pick one of 2 perks in the fight phase. Either reroll hit rolls of 1 for the phase, or reroll invulnerable saves of 1 for the phase. Unless you're fighting something at AP 0, choose Shields of the Chapter. Leading that unit is a Blade Guard Ancient. Personally, I would opt to convert this Corpse Banner for a noble Salamander's Torch/Brazier. While this Ancient doesn't have a blade to fight with, he does have 2 valuable abilities. Astartes' Banner will increase the objective control of models in his unit by 1, and Deeds of Heroism grants a once per battle increase to the attacks of models in his unit by 1, bumping the Blade Guard veteran's 24 attacks up to 30. Our Ancient has also been given the enhancement Champion of Humanity, which allows models he's leading to ignore any modifiers to rolls or tests, excluding saving throws, which is a great tool to ensure the Blade Guard don't get bogged down by any minuses to hit or wound. And serving as the second leader of that squad and the warlord of this list is Adrax Agatone. How has our favorite angry salamander with boss hammer fared in 10th?
Pretty good.
Defensively, he has his 2-up armor save representing his finely crafted Artificer Plate. D6 plus 3 attacks means Dracus is no longer as swingy, which is an improvement, and Malleus Noctum maintains a respectable profile. But it's his abilities which really shine. Unto the Anvil gives his unit full wound rerolls in melee. Oaths might be nerfed, but Adrax doesn't care. In an ideal circumstance, you'll have 30 Blade Guard veteran attacks, which if under Oaths are rerolling hits and wounds. Not to mention a few ancient attacks, and 6 attacks from Adrax. And if you really need to crank it up, you got the Salamander Stratagem, Firestorm Assault Stratagem, Crucible of Battle, which will give you +1 to wound as well. And if you throw them into a hard-to-break Anvil type unit, Adrax's second ability should serve you well. Lord of Pyroclasts halves the OC of models and enemy units within his engagement range, which also pairs nicely with our Ancient's Banner. Our second fire truck is another repulsor taken identically. As for what's inside, it's a unit dedicated for anti-armor fire support. A unit of 3 Eradicators, with 1 taking a multi-melta. At 18 inches, they'll fire 4 melta shots, 2 hitting on 3s and 2 hitting on 4s, or on 2s and 3s if they remain stationary because they have heavy. But more often than not, they'll be moving or disembarking. Thankfully, their ability Total Obliteration compensates nicely, granting full hit, wound, and damage rerolls when targeting a vehicle or monster, which is what they want to be shooting at anyways. This unit will be led by an Apothecary Biologist. Now, I need to address the Squiggoth in the room. The Marine Biologist's Vivispectrum ability has very little synergy with what the Eradicators want to be doing. But the reality is, Gravis armor units don't have many options for characters which can lead them. However, the Biologist's Surgical Precision ability works well for what I have in mind. Surgical Precision will give the Eradicators lethal hits, which does synergize well with their built-in rerolls. But to bolster the unit's efficiency even further, the Marine Biologist has been given the enhancement Forged in Battle, which allows you once per turn to change a hit roll or saving throw made for a model in his unit to a 6. And so when those Eradicators shoot, 1 hit will always be a 6, and it will always wound because it's a lethal hit. It's a neat combo, and the Melta weapons have the AP to make that 1 auto hit and wound more likely to have an impact. Our third fire truck brings some classic 40k flavor. The Land Raider Redeemer shares the Assault Ramp's ability and has the expected hull and hatch options typical of Land Raiders. But what it offers uniquely are thus. It has Flamestorm Cannons, 2 of them. That means 2d6 plus 6 auto-hitting attacks at strength 6, AP 2, dealing 2 damage. It makes for a great Overwatch candidate, and its other unique feature is that it has 2 extra transport slots over the standard Land Raider. Speaking of which, riding inside this unit is a fat squad of aggressors, obviously taken with Flamestorm gauntlets. The quick and dirty of them are, at 12 inches, they'll get 6d6 plus 6 Flamestorm gauntlet attacks, which automatically reroll wounds thanks to being twin-linked. And in melee they'll get 18 twin-linked Power Fist attacks. Leading that unit is a captain in Gravis armor. Now while I personally love the Apothecary Biologist with aggressors, I chose the captain instead for 2 important reasons. The first being that the Apothecary Biologist's lethal hits granting ability cannot benefit the auto-hitting Flamestorm gauntlets. Can't score a critical hit if you can't roll. A dumb ruling choice in my opinion, but those are the rules. And secondly, and more importantly, the Captain in Gravis has the Rites of Battle ability, granting you the power to use strats on his unit for free once per battle round. But these types of abilities only work for battle tactic type stratagems. But do you know what just so happens to be a battle tactic stratagem? Immolation Protocols gives Torrent weapons devastating wounds, and so on our unit of aggressors, that's 6d6 plus 6 dice for devastating wounds, which can be rerolled because Flamestorm gauntlets are twin-linked. Not too shabby for a 0 CP stratagem. Our fourth fire truck is an impulsor with a shield dome. What's inside? Well, here's a wild idea. Impulsors have firing dex 6, allowing each model inside an impulsor to shoot one of their ranged weapons. So why not slam in a 5-man Infernus squad? I'll be honest, this is a pure fun pick for me. Because everything in our army gains assault, we now have a fun bus with 12 inches of movement, which can advance around the board and fire 5d6 Pyreblaster shots. Quite the fire truck. And leading the Infernus squad is a librarian. Why a librarian? Truthfully, it was for points reasons. But there is some method to the madness. For starters, the librarian's ability does afford the Infernus squad a feel no pain against psychic attacks, and a 4-up invulnerable save, which isn't nothing. But the real fun comes with our Libby being able to smite from his firing deck while his transport advances across the battlefield. And you might as well go hard with focused smites, because the firing deck will defer any hazardous mortal wounds to the transport rather than the librarian himself. Which is funny. Now we can move on to the units without sweet rides. Claiming the objective in your deployment zone is an intercessor squad with the sergeant taking a thunderhammer. They are here to babysit your backfield objective, making use of their sticky objective ability. And should you need to reinforce your backfield, snake at the enemies, or deep strike in for secondary missions, the remaining units of the list are here to serve. A 5-man assault intercessor squad with jump packs, and 2 units of 5 reavers. And that's the list, clocking in at 1995 points. It's a list that is certainly maximizing the use of transport mechanics the Firestorm Assault Detachment provides. Burning Vengeance, the stratagem to disembark from a transport which was fired upon and immediately shoot at the aggressor, and Rapid Embarkation, the stratagem to embark at the end of the fight phase, should have enough efficacy between the 2 repulsors, the Redeemer, and the Impulsor. And the repulsors themselves allow out-of-phase embarkation in the enemy charge phase as well, which I think will be especially useful on units like Eradicators, who want to get danger close. Looking at the numbers, the list boasts 178 wounds across 17 units and 49 models. And looking at these nifty charts, we can see there is a heavy preference towards standard armor over Gravis, with a nice bump in toughness thanks to the many fire trucks in the list. That's a wrap on this Salamanders Thematic List Build. Thanks for watching, and a special thanks to my patrons. If you like these videos and want to support what I do, consider becoming a patron or channel member. It's thanks to them I'm able to produce videos like this, which is why they have a place on the Roll of Honor. Much thanks to Julius Maximus, as well as my other generous patrons and channel members. There are certainly more ways to go about creating thematic lists, and so I invite you to share yours in the comments. And comment below with what factions you would like to see for future thematic list builds. Anyways, there are buttons for liking, sharing, and subscribing. So press the buttons you want to press, and I'll catch you in the next one.